Well, thank you so much for all of you, for your time, for your passion, for your presence. Thank you to the dignitaries that are here today. Jennifer, my two lovely daughters that came up, and they said, "Dad, we always hear you talk. Do we have to hear you again?" I said, "Yeah, but you get a free lunch." And to Bishop Bates, thank you so much for the story. Did he leave? Oh, doggone it. Well, he talked about the story of the women that met, the two biological sisters that met in their 70s, right? And the one question that one sister had to the adoptive sister was, "What would you say to Mom who's just passed on?" And she said, "I would say thank you." And, gosh, at 27 years old, I had the opportunity to tell my mom thank you for giving me life and placing me for adoption. And for that reason, I'm here today. Thank you, Mom. It's for that reason that I speak for the preborn. I've spent the last 22 years of my life being an advocate for those who have no voice. And if you're a praying person, I ask you to lift up a quick prayer for me right now, because this is not an easy message. And oftentimes I get called upon to give the difficult messages. I don't run a pregnancy counseling center. I don't run anymore, and I don't pastor a church anymore. But I do the things that, well, remember A Few Good Men? Remember Jack Nicholson up on that wall? He said, "Sometimes you want me on that wall." And I feel like that sometimes because I deal with the horrible part of abortion and the abortion industry. And for 40 years, we have seen this lost generation. Isn't 40 years a generation? We've seen that lost. 55 million innocent children gone. And then their children's children. And their children's children's children. You know, a reporter called me yesterday and asked me what I thought of the 40-year anniversary. And I just said, tragedy. It's tragic. It's horrible. In fact, it's not an anniversary. When do you not celebrate an anniversary? When it's a memorial. And that's what we have. And I want to be honest with you, because we're all friends here and we're all on the same page. But let's be honest, we can't whistle past the graveyard anymore. 40 years is 40 years of failure. We failed to end the Holocaust in America. And if you're like me, like last night, as many nights, I wrestle with God at night, and I lay awake, and I think about the things that go on in the abortion clinics. And if you look at our website, operationrescue.org, you'll find that we documented over 32 botched abortions last year. 2 very horrible deaths. One of them, Tanya Reeves in Chicago, died at the hands of Planned Parenthood. Police reports, 911 calls. I talked to informants. I'm working with some informants right now, and the things that they tell me would curdle the milk in your coffee. I thank Sue, who was one of our gems early on to help us expose the telemed abortion scam. I've read too many autopsy reports. I've talked to too many women who have had abortions and can't have babies. Abortion is not pretty. It's horrible. And nobody wants to talk about it. In fact, a report was issued just late last year by the Susan B. Anthony Foundation that quoted a pro-choice pollster. They said the pro-choice people have found a way to win on abortion and win again and again and again. And that's not to talk about abortion. They talk about choice and every other euphemism that they can come up with. And as an example of how bad abortion is and how it has touched so many of our lives, I'm going to ask some people to stand. If you yourself have never had an abortion, or if none of your family members have ever had an abortion, or if you don't even know anybody or have never met anybody that has had an abortion, I want you to stand. Look around the room. Thank you. Thank you. As you can see, the horror of abortion has touched every one of our lives. And when you multiply out 55 million times the fathers that were engaged, and then the parents on both sides, and then the grandparents, it's hard to find any place in America where the bloodshed has not coursed through the hallways of families and houses. The wounds of the stories of abortion run deep. Last year, I was on a plane headed out to someplace to speak, and I don't know if you're like me, sometimes I like to get on a plane and just sit down. I just want to sit down, read my book, get to where I'm going after I've been taken hostage by the TSA. I just want to get to where I'm going. And a man sat down, and he seemed kind of happy, and he wanted to talk about his work, and I was happy to comply. And he says, "Hey, what do you do?" And that's always a tense moment in an airplane, because you're cramped in there like sardines and 4 or 5 other people can hear what you say. And I want to say, I'm a plumber. And I said, no, we're just having a good time here. We'll just keep going. And after a few more minutes, he says, no, what do you do? And he said again, what do you do? And finally I told him, I said, I hunt down mass murderers for a living, and I put them in jail. And he says, no, really, what do you do? But that's what we do. And I told him, actually, I work in the pro-life movement. And he stood stone cold silent after talking for a half an hour, for about 5 minutes. And he looked up to me with a tear in his eye, and he said, about 30 years ago, I was involved with a young girl, and she got pregnant, and she had an abortion. I was so devastated by that I never got married. I've never been married since, never had another relationship since. And he said, I haven't even been back to church since then. He says, do you ever speak in churches? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, will you do me a favor? Will you tell the pastors to talk more about it? And he just about wept the rest of the trip. That's the touching of innocent blood upon people's lives. A couple years ago, I had a tooth extracted. I'm a second-degree black belt, and our kids, we like to spar, and I had the opportunity to have a tooth removed as part of that. I don't miss that tooth. In fact, I don't think about it. But people think about their abortion experience on a daily basis. Last week, I was in Washington, D.C., and a woman came to me and said, for 35 years, I've suffered with this. I've been healed. I've been touched, I speak about it, but there is hardly a day that goes by that it doesn't touch me back. The sin of abortion has stained American crimson red with the blood of the innocent babies, and it's something we can never, ever forget. But in the scriptures, if you ever do Bible Gateway or CC Bible, or you've got a Bible program on your iPhone like I do, just type in, but God. And oftentimes, after a tragedy, Scripture says, but God. Here's a few of my favorite verses. But God had mercy on them. But for the grace of God. But God showed his kindness. But God is so rich in his mercy. 1 Corinthians says, but God combined the members of his body. And here we sit, an ecumenical service like probably has not been met since the civil rights movement. We have African Americans and whites and Asians and Lutherans and Presbyterians and Catholics and agnostics and atheists, and our friends from PETA. They come. My good friend Phil Eddy. I said, have a steak, Phil. He says, no, satisfied with garbanzo beans. I could never get full on garbanzo beans. But God has had compassion on us. And He's taken away a generation, and He's made us the generation of compassion. We talk about the greatest generation, the World War II generation. I believe God's raising up a second greatest generation, the generation of compassion. God has risen out of the ashes of death and despair, a generation to take on Leviathan and defeat him. I believe it to be so. This dragon we call abortion is being vanquished by the minute, and we will not tolerate anything until we see the end of abortion in America. Friends, I keep counting. If you go to our website, Abortion Docs, D-O-C, abortiondocs.org, we keep a running count, a running total of the abortion clinics in America. As was mentioned, how many, 4 or 5 closed just in Iowa? 25 closed across the nation last year. 25 abortion clinics closed. Praise Jesus. And the pregnancy counseling centers that used to be non-existent now outnumber abortion clinics 5 to 1. Come on. In 1991, there were 2,200 abortion clinics in America. Today, there's 660. That's a decline by 70%. The church may have been caught flat-footed in 1973, but we're alive and well in 2013. And we're not going to go another 40 years. I had to take down a sign in my office the other day. I realized that it was antiquated. It was a picture that said 1 out of 4 children die in abortion. I realized that that number had gone down to 1 in 3. But that's one too many. We cannot sit back. We cannot afford to enjoy these victories because it's one too many. And just like in VE Day, when we conquered Europe in 1945, we had to wait 4 more months to get VJ Day, the victory over Japan. We have a long uphill battle to win this fight. And the fight is arduous. We may have not seen the worst of the battle yet. In fact, I expect that the battle is going to become more fevered, more pitched, more screeching. I pray with all my might that it does not come to bloodshed, that we do not see another uncivil war. But it was mentioned in a poem earlier, or an essay, that the country has never been more divided. The scorched earth policy of the present administration in the last campaign was unprecedented. The attack on our freedoms as a religious community has been marked and duly noted. And the question is, what will we do? The next year, I believe, will be a year of testing for us as Christians and people of faith. Hobby Lobby is right now, yes. They're in defiance of a court order at this very moment. We don't know if the owners will be fined, jailed, put out of business because they refuse to use the money that they've earned to pay for abortions and abortion services. They refuse. And soon it'll be our turn. Next year, the abortion surtax will be levied on all of us, and my accountants and my attorneys tell me it's $1 per person per month. And for my family of 7, that's $84. It's $84 I will not be paying next year in taxes. Whatever it is, I will be withholding that and anything else that goes to abortion. And I don't know what the government will do. And I don't know what you will do. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Planned Parenthood is getting $500 million a year of our taxpayer money already. They're already going to fund the overhead for abortions. It's soon going to be going to actually kill innocent children. They're the largest abortion provider in the world outside of communist China. What may be worse yet is they take our money, they put it into political action committees to endorse politicians, to get them elected, to give them more money so they can kill more babies. It's a huge Ponzi scheme. And they're part of the machine. They become an extension of the federal government to kill children. And it's interesting, I watched a YouTube video, Mario Savio. Anybody heard of his name? He was a 60s radical in Berkeley. I'm sorry, I almost said Berkeley, which is what we called it in California. But they were raging against the machine, and in fact, that band, I'm told, Rage Against the Machine, was named after this speech, where he said, sometimes the machine becomes so disgusting, so odious, that we need to throw ourselves on top of the gears and the mechanisms so that the machine will no longer run. But isn't it interesting that the 60s radicals who fought for love, free love, and peace are now raging a war against religion, the babies, and our faith. So 2013 is a year where we must all decide where the line in the sand is drawn. Anybody know where that famous saying comes from? The Alamo is further back than that. Sorry? The Bible. There's, I trust everything Wikipedia says, except the Wikipedia page on me. But there's a famous story of Colonel Travis at the Alamo. He's there with 190 men. And he knew that Santa Anna had raised the black flag and no quarter. Anybody surrendering after that point would be murdered. And he was held true to his word at Goliad. So Colonel Travis drew a line in the sand in the middle of the Alamo, and he said that Houston's not coming. Fannon's not coming. It's just us against 3,000 plus men. And we're going to stand. It may cost us our lives. In fact, it probably will. But we're going to cost the other side dearly. And we will make a stand for liberty, and we'll buy time for Houston to raise an army, to write a constitution, and to come down and take on Santa Anna and to create a new country. Those men are honored in the American tradition as some of the greatest heroes that laid down their lives. And I've been to San Antonio, I've been to the Alamo, and there's literally an international shrine there to those 189 men. One man didn't step over the line. And I've been earlier this year to La Bahia in Goliad, where Fannin faced a similar fate. And many of you may know this. Not so famous of story, but equally as tragic. Fannin surrendered with 400 men to Santa Anna, and true to his word, he took them and held them in La Bahia, the courtyard there, for several days. And then he executed every single one of them and heaped their bodies in a pile and burned them. And it was remember Goliad and remember the Alamo was the battle cry, even all the way to World War II. Because these men did what they needed to do to secure the freedoms and the blessings and the liberties for the country that was before them, even though they would not be able to enjoy such freedoms. So my friends, there has been a line drawn in the sand here in America. The government who decriminalized abortion, then sanctioned abortion. And then they began protecting abortion through the Freedom to Access Clinic Entrances Act of 1994. They endorsed abortion. They began funding the abortion providers. In some cases, they're forcing abortions. Don't think that's not happening in America, particularly with young girls under the custody of the state. Now they're mandating that we pay for abortions. And the question is, what side in the line in the sand will we be on? I believe the pro-life movement is coming into a new phase of our existence. And our winning strategy must go beyond being pro-life. We've all seen the precious babies saved by abortion. We love each and every one of them. We love the stories, the endearing stories of children. But now we must go beyond pro-life and start talking about what we're against. We are in favor of life. But the interesting thing is the polls, the Gallup polling data that shows that 51% of the people claim they're pro-life. But you dig down a little further, 52% of those people believe that abortion should be legal under certain circumstances. Why would they think that under any circumstance we could kill a child? Any circumstance. And I'm not going to mention them all today, but I want you to do some of your own research, and we need to start talking about why we're against abortion. You know, years ago it was a pejorative to be called anti-abortion, and I'm starting to adopt that moniker more and more frequently and bathing myself in it. I am against abortion because I've read too many autopsy reports. Last month we closed an abortion clinic in Muskegon, Michigan, and this abortion clinic was so horrible, so foul. We had put complaints in against the medical license and the medical board and the clinic licensing and the attorney general and the district attorney, like we do all over the place. Well, they finally got a peek inside, and the ceiling tiles were coming in. The mold infestation was horrible. There were rat feces everywhere. The blood was all over the walls. There were still contents in the abortion machine, even though it hadn't been open in a week. The stench was so foul, the fire marshal shut it down upon entering the room. Friends, this isn't an anomaly. This is what's going on inside abortion clinics all over the country. If you've read about Kermit Gosnell, just Google his name, and you'll see that he's still in jail in Philadelphia on 9 counts of murder. 1 for karma monger, he killed with a drug overdose, and the other 8 were babies that were born alive, and he killed them mano a mano. Abortion is a horrible act of brutal violence. The abortion industry may have learned to win by not talking about abortion, but I'm telling you, here and now, we will win when we talk about abortion. We have the moral high ground. There is no doubt. 76% of us believe that abortion should be illegal after the first trimester, and 90% of us believe that it should be illegal after the second trimester. Friends, this is a coalition that we can build upon and we can win with. 100% of the people disagree with the violent deaths of Tanya Reeves by Planned Parenthood, Marla Cardamone by a private abortionist in Philadelphia, Holly Peterson by Planned Parenthood, Kristen Gilbert by George Tiller, Laura Hope Smith by Rapine Ostenhahn, and the list is endless. Unfortunately, 100% of the people believe that abortion is horrible and when it kills a woman. These are victory talking points. When we talk about these, when we talk about the horrible conditions in the abortion clinics, the botched abortions, the hysterectomies, the deaths, the near fatalities, the 911 calls, we stun the enemy into silence. We stun them into silence. We need to start adopting a more anti-abortion campaign because that is how we're going to win. And if you take a page out of history, we look at the anti-slavery movement was not a pro-freedom movement. It wasn't a celebration of our liberties on the 4th of July. It was an expressly anti-slavery movement. Today we have anti-smoking campaigns. They're not a clean lung campaign. It's not a pure air campaign. It's anti-smoking. and they have made huge inroads in America. America was built on tobacco. We used to pay our pastors in tobacco. And now, if you smoke, you're treated like a criminal. Friends, these are tactics that work. The anti-drinking and driving campaign has been wildly successful. The Mothers Against Drunk Driving are the ones that instituted the drunk driving checkpoints that all of us agree with. These are the tactics that the pro-life movement must go toward and embrace. We have been very good at building the branding of pro-life. Now we need to take that and move to the next level and be anti-abortion, and expressly so. Because friends, when we talk about the likes of Marla Cardamone, who's a beautiful 19-year-old girl, walked into an abortion clinic. 10 minutes later, she was deceased. And you take her picture and you juxtapose it, her beautiful prom picture, with the picture of her laying cold and gray and lifeless on a stainless steel autopsy table. The other side has got nothing to say. That's the reality of a so-called safe and legal abortion. And we will not rest. We will not stop. We will not relent until every baby is safe and every mother is protected. Because as my good friend Mark Crutcher says, we're not here just to fight. I'm not here just to spar the abortion industry. I'm not here just to trade jabs. We're here to win. We're here to win. Why? Because winning is how the killing stops. Period, end. So now I get the distinct pleasure of taking an offering. You guys were told that we were going to get together and we were going to talk about wonderful advances in the pro-life movement, and I hope you've been energized by them. I hope you've had some amazing stories that you can take back to your friends and family members, that you too have been energized for the fight for life, that you're going to go out of here with a renewed vigor. And one of the ways we can do that is by giving. You know, we vote oftentimes with our dollars. Remember when Joe Wilson stood up during a State of the Union speech and told Obama he was lying about the health care plan? He just mumbled that, you lie. Well, he raised over $1.5 million within the next week for his re-election campaign. And I gave him $100. I said, this guy's got so much courage. After the first election cycle, when we were all dejected, he seemed like to be the first person to stand up against Obama, the anointed one, right? So I said, man, I've never met the guy, I've never seen him, but I voted with my dollars. And sometimes, when you go to the polls, you wish you could vote for a Governor Branstad more than once. I'd like to get a couple of extra polling tickets, just keep punching that little ticket, have a few more hanging chads. I know this isn't Chicago where they say vote early and vote often, but we can vote early and we can vote often today. We vote with our dollars when we go to Hobby Lobby. Did anybody go to support Hobby Lobby Day? That was cool. I went and bought some frames I didn't even need. I might give them to you guys, next year for Christmas. I voted for Chick-fil-A. Anybody vote for Chick-fil-A? I moved from California to the United States 10 years ago when I moved to Wichita, and they just put in a Chick-fil-A, I think it was about 2 months ago, right before that whole thing happened. And I was so happy, I think I've spent $1,000 over there so far. But they're not open on Sunday, so we can vote with our dollars. And I want you to vote today for Iowa Right to Life. I want you to vote early, and I want you to vote often. We had a great time today. We had a great meal. It was a fantastic lunch. I'm not going to have to eat all day. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I don't know how I'm going to keep this girlish figure of mine. I want you to remember some numbers. And, I'm not going to tell you how much to give, but I'm going to give you some suggestions, okay? It was challenged to me years ago, if we've ever covered for an abortion before, if you have an abortion in your past, the average price of an abortion is about $400 these days. That's a good suggested love gift, donation. Not reparations, but it's a start. There's been 55 million abortions, at least, that we know of. 55 is a really good number. I'd like to make 55 votes. There's 3,300 babies that are going to die today. That's a really good vote. 11 weeks is the average age of a baby that's been aborted in America. Been 40 years. 40 years. As I said earlier, the government's going to want $1 from you every month. Every month. $1 per month for you and all your children every year to go into a huge abortion slush fund. I figured it out. It's in the trillions of dollars. So if you can make checks payable to Iowa Right to Life, and they take cash and credit cards and checks, gold and jewelry and mortgages, stock exchanges. They're coming out with a new dollar. It's actually going to be the $0 bill. Guess whose face is going to be on it? This is why we're here, folks. Right in front of you is the average age of a baby that's going to be aborted in America today. Take her home. Let her be a reminder to you. Let me pray, and then we'll bring the pastor up for a closing benediction. Will you bow with me? Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you for the gift of life, for the air in our lungs, for the thoughts that go through our mind. We pray that all of this would conform to your image, that we would vote with our tongues, with our steps, with our hands, with our wallets. Lord, give us more time to end this Holocaust in America before you come and take it all away. So I pray that you'd be with Jennifer, Iowa Right to Life, all of the organizations represented here, all the hands that put this together. We know it's not easy, nor is it cheap. So Lord, I pray that we would all do our part to end child killing in America. In Jesus' holy name, amen.